Yeah, so as people are rolling in and I'm getting the webinar ready to go on Facebook, just to let you know that anything Q&A, please use the Q&A box below. Just type to it. That'll help us kind of keep track of those questions. But yeah, I think we can get started. Just for everyone's knowledge, my name is Maihan. I'm with the Help Network, and I'm just going to be here facilitating this discussion for Voiceover Agents Roundtable. So that's our fancy name for it. But to start, in case no one knows who anyone else is, if we can get some introductions, maybe your name, your agency that you are representing, and then also some stuff about you that might be fun. Maybe Portia, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, hi there, I'm Portia Scott, and I'm a voiceover agent at Coast to Coast Talent Group in Los Angeles. And what to kind of know about me, and my background is as an actor, actually, master's from NYU in theater, and so I really agent from an actor's perspective, truth be told, and my specialty at Coast is animation and video game. And that's me.
Next on my screen is Sumeet.
Hi, I'm Sumeet Iyengar. I'm at CESD Talent. I've been there for 18 years. I've been an agent for 14, mostly covering commercials. In the last several years, I've started to cover video games as well. So yeah, I love it there. I love the industry, and I'm excited to be here.
Yay, thank you. And then Julie?
Yeah, so I'm Julie Thompson. I'm over at SBV Talent. I cover both the animation and interactive, though I specialize mostly in interactive. And I've been there for 7 years now, 7.5, which is just a little wild at this point. I also, like Portia, came into this from an acting perspective. I did a lot of theater as a kid, thought that I was going to go into acting, and then swerved into directing and producing. And then all of a sudden randomly ended up at SBV and found out I really loved it. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. So some of you have acting backgrounds and maybe like, and sorry, just things like that. But so what made you want to get into that industry, in this industry?
I mean, I grew up here in Los Angeles, so I grew up around the industry. I had lots of celebrity I grew up around, and it was just, at 8 years old, I was directing shows in my backyard and charging 50 cents. So it wasn't any, so it shows you how old I am, it's 50 cents. So it wasn't, really any mystery that I would just sort of follow suit, and went on to college, undergrad, graduate theater, and funny enough, I did a one-woman show back in the early 90s here in Los Angeles, and took a little holiday to Jamaica, broke my ankle, came back with a broken ankle, and really it shifted my whole life. I moved into, I was working at Universal at the time, and I moved into development, and from development, it moved me into, casting, into management, and then into being a voiceover agent, and a voiceover, it just sort of encompassed all the things that I had either studied or experienced in my life, really just met up in the world of voiceover. Back in the day when I first started, we would direct the actors in the booth with their auditions, and I was like, oh my God, holy grail, this is fantastic. I love working with actors. I loved being able to give notes back and redirects and so forth. And that's really where, so really everything I've done in my life has led me to this platform, really, truth of the matter. So that's kind of what brought me to being a voiceover agent.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I was just going to say, for me, it was completely accidental. It was, I moved out to Los Angeles in 2002, and was just kind of going from job to job, and saw an ad for an assistant in the voiceover department. And I didn't really know what voiceover was, or never really thought much of it, or that it could even be a career. But I got to know our clients. I got to be in the booth. I had the, a similar experience to you, Portia. I think, once I was in the booth and actually directing actors, that was really magical. And I sort of fell in love with that. I fell in love with our clients and got to learn about the industry that way, and just kind of worked my way up from there. And I think it's a good lesson. I always tell, when we interview assistants, or younger people, I always say, just be open-minded, because you never know, where your life's going to take you. And I think that was a good lesson for me, but it was a happy accident for me.
Awesome. Julie?
Yeah, I watched movies like crazy when I was a kid. TV, movies, that was my thing. I played a lot of games we weren't allowed to have games at my house, but we would go to all my friends' houses and play games. And so I just knew I wanted to be an actor. And I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so it's just not a thing everyone does there. And I was like, nope, this is what I'm doing. And then I got a book from USC for the film school, and I was like, wow, this sounds so cool. And I applied and got into the production course there. And so that brought me to LA, and I was like, this is what I'm doing, directing and producing. It was great. I loved it, but there's not a lot of money in it. Sorry. There's not a lot of money in it. And when you want to do passion projects. And so I was kind of looking around for something, and I just so happened to produce a couple of films with this one actor whose wife is Cynthia McLean, who is one of the people that I work with over at SBV. She's the head of the animation department. So at the time, they were looking for someone temp, and he was like, hey, I know this great girl. She's amazing. She'll fit right in. I was directing people in the booth all the time, which was really amazing. And I loved it. And I thought, wow, this voiceover thing is so different. I had worked with agents on a producing level for live action for so long. And I was like, ugh, agents are so tough and so like sleazy. And I didn't want any of that. And then voiceover was just this wonderful community of people with really big hearts, really wanting to work with, actors that were going to work hard for it, which I loved. And so I ended up just sticking around. And lo and behold, I ended up, being asked to stay on as an agent. And I was like, yes, please. So it worked out great for me.
Has anyone had experience not as a voiceover agent, but as an agent in other departments?
When I first started, my first job as an agent was at Sumeet's company. At that time it was CED, CESD, and I was in the youth department, and I did all of the youth voiceover, and I did commercials. Well, did I do commercials? Was it commercials? And now, oh my God, am I forgetting? But I was sort of a split. Yes, I did do commercials, because Carolyn Shear, who I worked with in the kids department, she did like one half of the commercial casting roster, and I did the other half of the commercial casting roster. So pretty much doing on-camera commercials, which I got to know a lot of it actually came back around, because now a lot of our on-camera commercial casting directors are doing voiceover. So, I got to reconnect those relationships. So that's as an agent, that's pretty much it though. It's mostly been voiceover.
Everyone's done most, and you love it. That's basically what I'm hearing. That's so awesome. So as an agent, what are some of those things that you'd like to see from those seeking representation beforehand? I know like training is a big one, but anything like that?
I mean, to have, if you're, it's a double sword question, right? Because if you're thinking about people who are just stepping in and who are trying to get into voiceover, it's a different, what my expectation of what to receive is different from those who are seasoned and or switching agencies. So I'll address the first. If you're someone new, have all your ducks in a row when you're submitting. Make sure that you have a demo that is attached, because that way I can just take my cursor down and I can listen to it, as opposed to have to download it. And if I'm really busy, that helps me in my time. Make sure you give me a little something about you in like a paragraph, and attach a resume. So many times people don't send resume, and let us know if you're union or non-union. It seems sometimes people who are non-union don't want to put it because they don't want to maybe submit as non-union, but that helps me to know. We do a fair amount of non-union voiceover. So if I'm thinking about you for my non-union division as opposed to my union division, I want to know, what your union status is, what you've done, a sample of your work, your demo, and that's really what I'm looking for. And if maybe you have a dedicated website, you know, if you're starting out, maybe you don't, but sometimes I am interested to see other work that you've done, because I can hear you in that way. Sometimes people put in some of their commercial content or some of their animated content. I'm curious to see that, because I'd like to hear you in you know, dropped in that format. So those are things that I really respond to when I receive submissions. Yeah.
I think that, again, if you're new, really be ready, you know, and that's, you know, a pretty broad term, I know, but, you know, in other words, have a demo that really reflects who you are. Make sure you know who you are, what your strengths are, and you have a demo that hopefully speaks to that. Because I think everybody kind of is, you know, wants to get to the finish line. They want to get an agent. They're rushing that process. And I think that process where you learn about yourself and learn what you're good at and what you're not so good at, or things that you can work on, you know, and you may surprise yourself by being able to do things that you didn't realize. I think that's a crucial step, so that when you approach an agent, you're fully confident in, you know, what you can do for them. I think that's crucial.
Yeah, I think doing research to know as well who you're reaching out to and why. Why are you reaching out to this agency? What is it about this agency that you connect with, especially if you're coming from nothing, no background, no previous agency, having only built up a certain amount of work behind you to be able to say, I can do this, listen to me. Why are you going for that one agency? Do your research. Who are all the agents there? Can you find their email addresses? If you can't find their email address, can you make sure that you address the email correctly to get it to somebody correct, you know, in the right department? You know, I'm always amazed I get a lot of emails from people who don't pay attention to spelling my name correctly. They don't know what department I'm in. I get a lot of commercial requests. I get a lot of theatrical people asking me for representation. And, you know, just the other day, actually, I got an email where someone BCC'd, well, meant to BCC, but CC'd all of the agents they were sending it to. And so you just look at that and you think, well, this is a waste of my time, because they're not considering my time as important either. So I think doing your research and knowing why and where you're going is very important. But also, on top of being ready, I think that the truth is, if you're trying to be ready, that means you are going to workshops, you are networking, you are getting to know the people in the industry, you are trying to find a way and sneak your way into any audition if you can, try to get into people's minds, get into people's faces, get them to know who you are. You should be going to as many workshops as you possibly can, so that people get to know your name and then refer you. Referrals are so much more valuable to any of the agents out there. We're gonna listen to somebody who's been referred to us over someone who cold emails us 100% of the time. And a referral means, hey, this person, I believe in them. They've got this talent. You wanna show that off, so show it off. Go to those workshops, get to know people. It might be a longer process, it might take longer, but you could end up with an agency that you actually want to be with, rather than cold sending it out to anyone and someone just taking you because they have space on their roster, and then you get forgotten about.
And if I could say one more thing, just want to piggyback a little bit on what Sumeet said, is be ready. And that means also knowing, having, like now because of the pandemic, we need to have Source Connect. And I understand you might not have Source Connect standard because you're starting out, but at least have Source Connect now, so that you have some familiarity, so if you do get signed, you can bump that up, or you can say in a meeting, listen, I'm familiar, I haven't bought it yet, but I can, and have that familiarity, because that's everything to us now. You know, being able to book and work with that program, you know, you know, that's almost, you know, going ahead of maybe even how good your home studio is, and having that component, I think might be the thing that edges the people who book and the people maybe who don't, or who have it or don't have it, and their performance is maybe equal, but maybe that's the one step that makes the buyer go, oh, you know what? This person has everything. This person is great, but this person has everything we need. So we need every tool to win. And right now, I say voiceover is the it girl, and everybody wants her. Everybody wants it. I mean, AMC is doing animation now. I mean, my God, everybody is doing it. You know, the pandemic really sort of, you know, intensified our business because everybody now wants to produce content. So there's a lot of opportunity. With that in mind, there's a lot of opportunity. And so you want to be ready for it.
And Source Connect, by the way, I'm sure all of you now have seen their breakdowns that demand it, that they don't even want to listen to somebody unless they have Source Connect. Because they're just, you know, now they have gotten used to not paying for studios. So, you know,
Yep.
So that's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, even in the 7 years that I've been doing this for voiceover specifically, I mean, I've seen it go from our lobby packed with people doing auditions every 10 minutes, going in 10 minutes, leaving, coming back, making calls. No one was recording from home. People didn't have microphones at home. And that was only 7 years ago. And even the people who did have microphones at home, it was for an emergency purpose. It was never to actually audition and book the role. And now, you know, there are some talent who have not wanted to keep up with the change. It was very hard in the beginning of the pandemic to get some talent on board to understand, if you don't have these things at your disposal, if you're not ready to put in the time and commitment to understand and learn about it, there's a risk that you're going to lose a portion of the work. And I don't know if that's here to stay. I do think it is here to stay in a significant way in the commercial department. Animation interactive, probably not as much, just because the sound quality is so important for those teams, because there's so many people, they need it to all sound the same. But at the same time, knowing you have a talent coming to you saying, hey, I don't want a job to just fall in my lap. I'm going to work for it. I know how this equipment works. I know enough about it so that I can troubleshoot on my own. If I don't know how to troubleshoot it, I know who to go to. And I'm going to figure out the things you tell me I should figure out on my own and put in the hard work to show you I can do this as well. That's what you need from talent these days.
Yep. And, you know, to that end, in terms of the world of animation, you know, Nickelodeon is still remote record. They have not gone back to studio. You know, the studios now just ship the kits to the home and get everybody set up. So, you know, I think that, you know, for maybe the studios that don't have recording, like, you know, their own setup, I think that it might be here to stay. You know, I think and let's just say, you know, listen, we're all going to need booster shots. So I'm saying at least for the next six to 12 months, you know, this is where we're going to be.
So definitely do look into Source Connect, and also do not CC everyone. On that note, what are other like do's and don'ts would you recommend to people trying to get representation?
Man, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. And I'm not one person to sort of lump you into one thing, but just do what you're good at to start. You know what I mean? Say, oh, I'm going to do it all. You know, the old school of, I'm an actor, singer, dancer, I can do everything. We're just not in those times. Do you know what I mean? Get into your lane, get good at it. Good. If it's animation, double down, focus, video game, commercial, audiobook, corporate, whatever it is, get into that lane and stay there and double down until you have a fair amount of success. And then if you want to branch out in other areas, get the training, you know, start your process in that way. I just say, get good at what you do is a do.
I was laughing when Julie was talking because I think we've all had this experience where somebody has sent us an email with the demo, but they put a different agency, you know, and it's just clearly like a form letter. You know, I think you do want to do your research. I was saying this to somebody the other day. I mean, obviously we all get countless emails every single day with demos and submissions, I don't think I've ever gotten an email from somebody saying, what do you guys actually need? Because I would respond to that email, like, because that nobody ever asks that. And I think that's such a crucial part. Make sure you're pitching to the right agency, you know, and you know, do all of the research. You know, I think if you're not hearing a response after a couple of times, you know, I think, you know, check your demo again. Maybe your demo is just not effectively presenting yourself, but don't keep asking about it. You know what I mean? I think a non-answer is the answer in that case. And I think you need to sort of be a little bit more introspective about why your demo is not getting the response that you want, or why your email is not getting the response that you want.
Yeah, it's the same. I have so many emails that, for me, I tag every email that comes in. If someone's sending it to me directly and it's a submission, I will tag it and I will listen. But that doesn't always mean I'm going to respond. If I'm not feeling it, I'm just not going to respond immediately unless that person has been referred to me, in which case I feel I owe that person who's referred to me an answer. But I just can't get back to everybody. And that's just the way it is with the vast amount of emails that I get. But I will listen. And so, yes, if you're not getting an answer from me, it's not a hit right now. That doesn't mean it can't be a hit later on, but it doesn't mean it's a hit just because you send me the same materials. I don't like people who aggressively follow up with me, and I've had many who do that. I think that puts you in a worse light. Be careful. Be careful with following up too aggressively, because people get to know your name then. They remember your name, and if they meet you out in the wild, it might not be the best meeting. And again, the thing for me is, you know, if you're going to go cold call out to an agency, great. Put it out there. You get no response, take a few steps back, go do some workshops, keep working at it, keep getting better, book more jobs where you can, and then go out again. But don't feel like just because you didn't get a response once means, well, they don't know what talent I have. They should just hear it again and again and again. And it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you know, when you do send in, you know, make sure that your subject matter is accurately reflecting what you want. I don't know if this is a trend, and I'll bring it up, but I've been recently getting these submissions that says setting up meeting, looking forward, following up on meeting. So I go to that and I'm like, oh my God, what meeting did I miss? I think that there's, you know what I mean? I think that's a casting director. I think that that's something else. And I open it up and I'm like, oh, damn it, this is a submission. And so you've already got me on the defense. Now you've got me on the negative, and I'm not sure that's where you want your audience to be. You know, you want to engage us, enroll us, so that we have interest in, you know, just say, looking for representation. That's really clear. Just do that. So, yeah.
There's also simple things, I think, like, you know, the morning, you know, we're all checking our emails and stuff like that. Your email is just going to get absorbed into that, right? I think later in the day might be a better time to send that email.
Yeah.
You know, it's just simple things like that, like really get into the psychology of somebody who's sifting through emails and has a million things to do, and, you know, is juggling all this stuff, and how can you best present yourself in, you know, a good light.
Yeah, and I think sending your emails in business hours is respectable. You know what I mean? When I, you know, if I'm getting like a 3 a.m. on Sunday, I'm pretty sure that's going to get deleted.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Or like the Friday before a holiday.
Yeah, bad choice.
It's not the best. It's not the best. It really stresses you out.
Well, yeah, and then because what happens is the Friday, you know, we're probably working till 1 o'clock or whatever, or have the day off, and then we're coming back after having all that time off, and everything is just, you know, I start at the beginning and I just see, oh no, because I can see all the other pressing things I have to get to, so it's just going to get lost. So
Right.
You know, think like a business person. Show business. So think about the business part of it.
I think too, a lot of submission emails either go one way. No info whatsoever in the email, so I barely know what they're looking for, or way too much info that I don't have time and don't really want to read. I still need some info, but I need it to be concise and clear. Pitch yourself. Consider, you can't be Steven Spielberg and go in, well, I guess you can be Steven Spielberg and pitch whatever you want. But, you want to go in with a strong elevator pitch, and it needs to be prepared. You need to know, this is who I am. Let me explain very quickly. Let me give you a few obvious, demo, a headshot, a resume, simple, here's me. Make it clean and clear. And that way I can decide, oh, okay, I see this title. I see that title. I see this person that I work with very often and they're mentioning their name. Great. If you're telling me that so-and-so in the industry has referred you to me, that's not true. They told you that I work at an agency, you could reach out to me. They're not referring you to me. If they're referring you, they're going to email me telling me about you. So be careful with that. I wouldn't say so-and-so referred me to you. I took a class, they mentioned your agency, I looked into your agency and I love what you do. I want to be with you. That's how you go about it.
And I'll try to be a little bit vague here, but I'm sure we've all gotten an email from a certain, the same email from the same, they've worked with this person and emails are all the same. And so at a certain point, it's like, I don't know how special you are because I've gotten 12 other emails that are, swap out the name and the email address, but it's basically the same email. So just be a little bit mindful of that. Like, make it your own. This is about you, so tell us about yourself.
I know who you mean.
Oh. Going back to Portia, when you were talking about staying in your lane. Oh, hello, camera. All right, goodbye,
Okay,
camera.
I thought it was me. Oh my God, what is happening? He's going, what's happening?
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
When you say staying in your lane, would you consider talent who doesn't have a commercial because they specialize in or want to do character work only?
Well, what I mean by stay in your lane is if you are starting out, pick an area of voiceover that you have interest in, and you've gotten some response from your circle of people that you could be good at. Double down, focus on that, and do that. If you've gotten, if audiobooks, and you've got this way to be able to tell story and convey it in sort of in a reader's kind of way, and you've gotten a lot of, support around that, then focus, do that. Don't say, oh, well, I also, I want to do animation, and I want to do commercials. Pick what you're good at first and do that. And that's what I mean by staying in your lane, because listen, this is a business and your career is the long haul. It's not just to get in real quick. Well, because the challenge is, kids, once you get an agent, you then have to up your game, because then the pressure is on. You're going to have audition. Well, damn it, you got to book something. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's how we make our money, is when the actors book, really, so we need great talent, and we also need talent that can book. So just make sure that you've done everything. I like to think about the training process like, to get a degree is 4 years, right? You get a 2-year degree, you get a 4-year degree, or you go to conservatory, it's a 3 years, right? So at the bare minimum, you have to spend 2 years working this out before you even get to the agent level, I would say. You don't really just go, oh, I've taken a couple of classes here and a couple of classes there. Woohoo, I'm ready to go. There's a whole other reality once you get signed, and you have to be ready to step into that. And also even once you get an agent, you still have to take classes. You still have to train. You still have to do all that. It's not like, woohoo, we're going to kick back, because, we're, at the end of the day, we're commissioning at 10%. You're the 90, so you still have to, it's a career you're building.
It's your job.
It's a job. So yeah, that's that's what I'm saying about staying in your lane and focusing and being ready, you know, what you're attempting to do, you know.
I think on top of staying in your lane is we'll have a lot of people come in and say they want to do animation. Animation, of course, is the big one. Everyone loves the idea of animation. And they'll come in and they'll have theatrical backgrounds, or they'll have on-camera backgrounds, and they'll come and say, yeah, I just really want to get into voiceover. Okay, I might want to work with you because I love your voice or something about you, but what is it about voiceover that you want? And a lot of times what you hear is, oh, I've always loved animation, you know, I don't know, I can see myself having a voice in a Pixar movie, or like, you know, a voice of like, you know, a Disney prince. Those roles don't come around too often, and they usually don't go to the majority of the voice actors out there in the industry. So if you're pitching yourself that way, one, you don't sound like you really care about animation. You know, if you say oh yeah, I love American Dad. Okay, that's cool. If you really love American Dad, great. But there's a lot more animation out there. And I'd love to know that people really do love it. You don't have to be a know-it-all. You don't have to be a savant about it. It's okay. But, you know, if you're going to sit there and tell me, like, actually, I've always really loved animation, but I haven't had a lot of time lately to watch it, but that's something I want to get back into, great. I feel the honesty there. It's the same with games. I played games when I was a kid. I stopped playing games because I went to college and I said, if I keep playing games, I will not do my work. So I had to stop. And it took me away from video games for a long time, to a point where then when I got back into them because of work, I was like, oh gosh, I have to remember a lot of this stuff and I have to learn. And so I picked up every book I could. I was trying to do my research online. I was looking into everything. And there were so many key things in my memory, but I had to build on that. And, you know, my agency believed in me because they said, you know what, I did like games. I want to do more of it. Let me learn about it. Let me grow. And, you know, that sort of honesty, that sort of reach into the truth, that's staying in your lane. That's saying, like, this is truly who I am versus, oh, I love animation.
I could do all these kind of funny voices.
Yeah.
And, you know, newsflash, funny voices have nothing to do with animation. It's good acting.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good acting.
So kind of with that, say someone has like a lot of training, but they don't have a lot of credits on their resume. Would you consider, you know, looking into someone who doesn't have a lot of booked roles?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. Everybody has to, I recognize everybody has to, you know, I think we all do recognize that you have to start somewhere. You know, just to double back what Julie and Sumeet said, that you have to, it's good acting, it's training, you know, learning about that said industry. And if you don't, you know, and if you've got a really solid demo and it sounds great, and you've found a way to lean into who you are and present that, absolutely, I would meet someone like that, or at least, you know, at least respond to the email and try and get more information, certainly.
Yeah, we're constantly, I mean, I'm looking, and I think our agency, and I think it's safe to say most agencies are looking for a different point of view, right? I mean, that's the thing that we sort of take notice. So whether you have 100 credits or 0 credits, if you're something unique that we just don't have, we're going to want you, you know, and there is a real joy in developing somebody's career, you know, and from the ground floor. And I think every single agent really enjoys that. So absolutely. I mean, please don't be, you know, intimidated by the fact that you just haven't worked before or don't have a ton of credits. You know, if you really have something special to offer, we'll hear it.
You know, my favorite call to make to an actor is when it's a Taft-Hartley. I'm like, get that resume together. You booked it and you're in. I mean, that is like my favorite call to make when someone, you know, Taft-Hartley, so many actors really since this pandemic. It's an insane amount of it. So I'm happy to be in that position. You bet.
I think as far as like what I represent at SBV, like we have, you know, an interesting group of talent that kind of come from all over different places, but one of the things we've worked really hard to do lately, and the pandemic puts a weird spin on it, but we try, you know, those workshops we're talking about, there's a lot of agents who audit them or who give workshops, but I prefer to go and audit. I prefer to just listen in, and I'm listening to hear who's got something unique. I'm not trying to show off that I'm an agent in the background. I don't want to do that. I don't want people approaching me trying to pitch themselves. I want to hear you, and I want to hear you do something fun. And so there's this one talent we have, and I try to tell anyone new this story. He went in his first 2 years, he was a medical student, decided to give it up, decided he wanted to do acting, and he said, workshops are the way I'm going to do it. I love anime. I'm going to learn everything about it. He took 70 workshops over 2 years. In one of those workshops was one of the agents at my agency. She signed him as soon as she could, said, you have such a unique sound. I don't know if at the time he was union or non-union at that point, but either way, because we're a union-only agency at this point, we brought him in, and it's been amazing to see his career grow. But he still does workshops. So that's why we say, you know, take those classes, go to workshops. That's how you can meet some agents. They may not make it clear that they're there to be an agent, or maybe be careful, don't approach them too heavily, but you could make an impression that way.
I think that's true. And we've taken talent, you know, you know, a lot of classes have these sort of meet the agent nights. You know, as a former booth director, I don't get to direct our talent that much. We have full-time booth directors who do an extraordinary job, but I miss that interaction with the actors. So when I get to do those kinds of things, it's really fun for me. And I think that's 1,000 times better than a demo, because you're seeing somebody live, you're seeing what they can do, and you're seeing how they'll react to your direction. If they can actually take your direction and make those adjustments, there's nothing better than that. So I think, you know, definitely take, you know, advantage of those opportunities.
What would you say is the best actor-agent kind of relationship?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
that's a really good question.
Thank you, anonymous attendee.
I think that, you know, I feel like it's a relationship that's got great communication, that, you know, sometimes actor clients hear about projects that may or may not be on the desk, and being able to sort of reach in and share that information. So, you know, it kind of, it's sort of a relationship, I think, that, you know, both sides have a lot of room to share information. And if I have to sort of give you a note about one of your reads or something, and that you can take that critical note as a positive and use that to your benefit. So I think that it's not like we're friends. I mean, some of my clients I'm friends with, but I don't necessarily have to be like hanging out with all my clients all the time. But I think it's an open communication and understanding between the two. I think that's what seems to work well for me and my clients. You know what I mean? Being able to sort of reach out and say, hey, you know, I've had all these auditions, I'm not getting any callbacks, and then I can take a few moments, I can maybe do a quick review. And I'm thinking, well, you know, you might want to check your home studio, brush that up a little bit. You might want to pop into, you know, some other classes over here. Who are you working with? Who are you training with? Let's switch that up. So to be able to have open dialogue about the process, I think feels like a good answer. So, you know.
I agree. And I think that, you know, it's a partnership, right? So you want, like, we're working really hard for you. We want you to sort of care as much as we do. I go to the simple things. I mean, these are simple things, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do things like return phone calls, or, you know, in a timely manner, or reply to emails in a timely manner. You know, if you're working, I get it, but, you know, it's sort of like, if I'm looking at your calendar and there's nothing there, like, I expect you to respond. I mean, it's just simple things like that. But, you know, by and large, I think, you know, if I just want you to care as much as I do, and be willing to kind of put that work in, you know, and then I'll go to bat for you, because your job is to do the performance, and I'll do everything else. I'll be the bad guy. I'll, you know, get into a fight with the producer to make sure you're protected. I'll do all of that stuff, but you have to want it as badly as I do.
Yeah, and I think there's also trust. You know, one of the things that's really hard in our industry is we get used to this idea that people talk behind our backs about everything, and we all are judging someone. We're not judging the work, we're judging someone. And sometimes there's people who they feel this level of distrust in someone. And when you're working with an agent, you have to trust them and they have to trust you to work together really well. A lot of times, you know, when someone is like, oh, I didn't get this audition. Why didn't I get this audition? There could be a million reasons, and it can be
I'm sorry, but I'm just answering that text right now from a client. Oh my God, I'm hearing about these projects. Are you working on them? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm literally just getting that text right now.
Yeah, and look, there's something great about an actor who looks out for you and says, hey, I heard about this project, just making sure you guys have it on your desk. That's great. But you know, hey, why didn't I get this? And sometimes it can feel accusatory, and you know, we're all human. We're out here trying to do our best. And so having that level of trust and knowing that, you know what, there's human error, there are things that happen. The truth is, just check in. I bet you people are going to want to work with you if you just, you know, approach it with a nice, trustworthy manner. And yeah, just know that, you know, as much as you can, be open and communicative with your agent. Know that, you know, there may be something on the horizon that it may throw you for a loop because of a conversation or something that happened. Something happened in your session and so got upset. Trust your agent to have your back and to help you through it. Don't feel like they're coming at you. Have that communication, talk with them, let them be your bodyguard.
So,
And one more thing, when your agent is working on a project that's for kids, and you as the talent book often as a youth, and then you send an email saying, why are you not being covered? If you're not being covered, it's because casting has asked for authentic kids. So I'm just saying that for any ears that are up.
Oh, well, authenticity, that's an important thing too. Authenticity in any respect. You know, these days, as an agent, we're being asked authentic. Whatever the representation is, must be authentic. It is very hard for us to constantly keep a list of exactly what ethnicity somebody is, what languages they speak that are actually their mother language, what accents, because they've lived there. It is hard to keep a lot of that information. Understand gender identity. That's not for me to decide for somebody. That's for somebody to tell me that that's how they want to be represented, or for me to send them the audition and have them say, you know what, Julie, this isn't right for me. This isn't something I think I can authentically portray. That is okay. I want you to have the opportunity, but I want you as an actor to be able to say, I don't think this is right for me. That's totally fine. But if you're not having the conversation with your agent saying, hey, by the way, these are all the really interesting things about me. I'd love to be represented for this. You know, if you're not having that conversation, you're not going to get those opportunities. And trust me, I've had a few talent that have come out of the word work over the years. Like, oh, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you this. And because the world has changed. The world has changed.
That's right. That's right. Good point. Very good point.
Is there anything that you personally or your agency is doing to make kind of those steps for reaching out to more diverse talent?
Definitely trying to, you know, the transgender, non-binary, ethnic, diverse. I'm personally actively doing that. I mean, honestly, because I'm a Black woman, that is something I've always done. So that's not new, you know what I mean? Welcome to the club, everybody's woke now. You know, that's something, you know, I've been doing my whole career in fitting that, you know, many times when the breakdown says Caucasian, I threw in people who were not Caucasian because it's voiceover. Let's see, you know, if I don't have any kind of cultural sound to the actor, if the actor can just be, you know, good actor and not necessarily their voice doesn't tie to any ethnicity, I see no reason why we can't submit them. And I've been governing my business as an agent for 24 years now, that way always. So I think that it's not really new business to me, but I am happy for it. I will say, with that in mind, more of my ethnic talent are booking now than ever before. So, you know, although late to the party, better late than never, I say. So.
We have great relationships with managers who cover, you know, specific areas that we were lacking even just, you know, 18 months ago. So that's been a really great relationship. I also have to say, you know, and I you know, I know I'm not old and I don't feel old, but we have, you know, our assistants are, anytime I talk to them, I just feel like a million years old. But what's great about them, and I think what's great about their generation, is that they seem really, really open to educating all of us about all of these new things that we didn't necessarily know about. And they're, you know, and that's been a really, really good source of information for us in terms of how to talk about these things and what the differences are and what's offensive and what isn't offensive and all of those things that really help us better represent talent. So, you know, I think if you're open-minded, I think you can sort of, it's easier to sort of diversify your list appropriately and be more open to, you know, representing people in general.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is so important for me when looking for diversity in whatever scope is that as much as that is amazing and interesting, I also want to make sure that I can represent you and the talent you have. I don't want you to feel like you're a box that I check off. I want to know that I can get you into any role, no matter what. They can redraw the character. I want you to be an amazing performer, no matter what your identity, any of it. And so knowing that I can represent someone beyond just an identity is super important to me. So feeling like that person can present their talent to me and their background, and we can work together. That's an important part to me in a meeting with somebody who's trying to come to me, whether we found them because a manager said, hey, you know, I have someone who's, you know, ethnically diverse. Great. Let's talk about their talent. Let's fill in those gaps. Let's make sure that we can represent them to the fullest extent.
That's really exciting. Someone mentioned Edward Hong made a resource, the PGM VO list, if anyone's familiar with that. That's just like a list of a bunch of different diverse voice actors that I see a lot of agencies using. So thank you for mentioning that. What are the most important changes voice actors should know about building their careers now versus like 10 years ago?
Self-directing, to be able to, you know, once again, we had the booths, we had voice directors to direct you, to help you with that, but that's, you know, a lot of that has gone away, and you've got to be able to submit in competitive auditions. A lot of casting directors, you know, particularly on the animation side, only allow us to submit 5 actors from our agency, you know, maybe 6. So being able to be, you know, deliver competitive reads and competitive and acting, performance, tech, you know, that all of that matches up, and to be able to direct yourself and be honest with yourself, I would say is, you know, a big one on my list for sure.
And I would just say that, I think it's been a continuation of where the industry has been headed over the last several years, but just it's more competitive now than it's ever been. And, you know, by the end of the year, it'll just continue that way. So that's just something to be mindful of. You're also, it's more celebrity driven than it has been before. I mean, you know, so, and I think especially in the last 18 months, we started hearing from on-camera actors that, you know, we used to struggle to get auditions from. Now they're like all in, because, you know, for a while we were the only aspect of the industry that was still going. So you're just be aware that your competing against a larger talent pool, not just in LA, but across the country, across the world, and just be mindful of that. Don't be discouraged, just be prepared.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to stomach, knowing that the world that, for me, being in my 30s, in the 90s, the world was presented to me on TV in a very different way than I'm living it now in my 30s. You know, you see these TV shows where they get a degree from college, they get an executive job right out of college, they have a home, they have this. And no, it's nothing like that. And it's very hard. It's very hard to deal with knowing that, okay, I have to squeeze every bit of life out of the training I've had, the things I've learned, and the goals that I have, and figure out how am I going to get there. And you have to work so hard to be prepared for that. You have to be networking. You have to be researching constantly. You have to be watching shows. You have to be getting to know all the names that you see on those shows that you love. Go on IMDb every day, make a list. Who are the new names of people that you want to learn about? Go listen to demos of people that you aspire to be. Be working hard. You know, knowing equipment, knowing how to self-direct, knowing how to, you know, who the agents are out there that you want to be with, knowing that you have done that hard work. It's going to make my job a lot easier to sit there and think, wow, this person is going to work hard for me too. And that's so much more important now. You know, yeah, 7 years ago, it wasn't exactly this way, but I know from all the tales in the industry, you know, jobs used to fall in the lap. You'd have a really nice account that lasted for 2 or 3, 10 years. And everyone heard the same white man voice on the, you know, NBC radio or, you know, ABC News, the same voice. Every commercial was the same normal commercial sound. That's not the case anymore. And you may not see a campaign happen for a very long time. Every agency is like, let me give you these cool 15-second spots that we're going to just put out for like 10 days and then it's done. Yeah. That's happening more and more now. So get with the program, know that that's what's happening, be prepared for it, and be prepared to work hard.
I did just take a look at the time and we're nearing the hour. And we do have a few more questions still. Would you guys mind staying on, or is there like a hard? Good. Okay, perfect. So we do have a few questions about this. Is booking talent through your agency, talent that is outside of LA on the table, or do you recommend them coming to LA, or how would you approach that?
Well, you know, in these days, as long as you've got the home setup, really, we're booking talent, you know, because a lot of people, because of the pandemic, had to leave LA and they had to go back to their home, wherever they were really, you know, originally from. And so we continue to work with them, and the studios are, you know, DreamWorks has a studio in every city practically. So we continue to work with them. There are some things that have to be here, but by and large, at least for me, I'm not opposed, as long as you're prepared. As long as you've got your home studio set up, you have your either ISDN or your Source Connect, or you have all the tools that we need for you to work from home, with the option of going to a studio in your local community. And those are the main cities, Austin and Seattle and things like that. So I wouldn't be opposed. No, not at all.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you are out of state and you want to be able to stay out of state, it's not to say it's impossible, but be prepared. Know all of the studios in town, get to know all of them, have all of their information prepared so that when you sit there and someone says, we need them in a studio, don't lose that job to somebody in LA. Say, great, here's all the studios, here's their typical rates, here's the information. Make it really easy on them. Give it to your agent so they can immediately send it on. That's what we do for certain talent that we have out of state. We have a list of all the studios that are closest to them that they like to go to, that you know, if we can, we know their rates, or at least we know the contact info. And also timing, be really considerate of time zones. Now I have a talent in Australia. She will wake up at, I think it's like 2 a.m. her time to do a session for me at like 11 a.m. She'll do that. She'll wake up at 4 a.m. to do a later session, or she'll stay up super late just to do the session. She doesn't put any barriers on the work that we have to make it happen. And, you know, perhaps maybe if you're stressed, not feeling well, don't do that. Don't put yourself in jeopardy, but be as open as you can. And, you know, with East Coast, the same thing, being prepared to stay on late. Know that that may interfere with your dinner plans if you have a family. And, you know, I can't always be the one to problem solve when that becomes the issue. I need talent that are going to be willing to say, you know what, my issues shouldn't be issues. Yes, I will do this session.
Yeah, I think I think now is the time, you know, to, if you wanted to move out of LA and still have a voiceover career. Like, it seems like the last year, I think, has proven that you can do that. Commercially, it was never really an issue because most of the ad agencies are not based in LA. They're based all over the country anyway, so they're patching in. So it didn't seem to be an issue where you were. With animation and with video games, I'm noticing that like each individual studio has their own specific technical requirements. So just be mindful of that. A lot of them are open to, you know, if you really do have a solid setup in your house, you know, you'll have to do a test or something and make some adjustments, but they're open to that. Or they may want you to go to a studio in town. There are some studios that will absolutely not record you if you're not in LA. Like, they need you to come in. So just be aware of that. You know, it's like anything else. You know, there are pros and cons, and just, you know, weigh that stuff together.
Does your agency accept international talent?
If you can legally work here, you've got all your working papers. I've got a few clients out of the UK, one out of Ireland. So if they can legally work here, and they can, once again, like Julie was saying, the time zones, you know, I'm not going to cater to your time zone. When I send out an audition, it's emailing out to the group, and it has to come back when it's due. I'm not going to be able to make allowances for your time zone, because when it's, you know, when it's due on my desk, it's due on my desk, and that's really not negotiable. So, yeah, if you can legally work here, and depending on where you are, you can get your content in on time. No, not at all. In fact, more and more content is asking for a broader scope outside of the US. A lot of commercial content is asking for that now, more than, I never used to see that in commercial content at all. You know, UK, Ireland, Australia, and I'm like, wow, we've gotten so much smaller as the world, which is kind of a cool thing, I think. So yeah, not opposed to that. Just have all your ducks in a row and be ready to go when you're submitting. Have that, don't say, oh, I'll intend to, because that's just going to hit the delete. You know, that's just going to go there. So
yeah. And be prepared for 2 things. 1, taxes. Learn them yourself. We're not accountants. We don't know. We don't know. And as much as we can try and help you, that's taking away our day from being able to book you. So learn how to deal with the taxes. If you're going to live internationally, even in another state, because right now the working remote thing, it can be a little iffy. Be careful. Learn it yourself. Go find an accountant. Go find someone who's an immigration attorney to have someone talk to you and say, okay, this is how you're going to do it. If you need to set up a corporation in the US, if you need to do, you know, whatever, do that. And then the second thing, visas. You know, if you have a green card for the US, great. It's a lot easier to work with you. You keep up with making sure that green card stays prim and proper, whatever check-ins you need to do, great. O1 visas, they can be complicated. They can be really complicated. So do your research. If you're really going to go for an O1 visa, talk to an immigration attorney, get as much advice as you can, make sure that you go about it as best as you can, and then know there will be projects that will book you, and then they will drop you once they find out that you have an O1 visa through a manager, and they can't do that. There are some legal teams that advise them against it for various reasons. And that's what happens. It's not your fault. It's not because somebody doesn't want to work with you, but they can't legally.
Good point.
I think the answer, you know, as far as working with people internationally, I mean, it presents its own set of challenges. I mean, just the time zone again, you know, if I'm emailing you, I have to wait until the morning to hear all of that thing. And I think the answer is, if you're worth it, we'll be willing to put up with it. You know what I mean? If you offer something really unique, whatever the challenge is, we'd be willing to put up with it. You know, if you think that you can work for us, it doesn't matter where you live, you know, we'll make the adjustments.
How much do you expect your clients to book in the first year that they join?
As much as possible. I mean, you know, it's, you know, really as much as possible. I mean, I need, you know, if we're at 12 months, if we're at 12 months and we've had some avails, we've had some callbacks, if we haven't had any bookings, then we might, you know, dig in a little bit, unpack it, see what's going on, what can, you know, what can we do to shift that? That doesn't mean that we, you know, it's going to be a drop, because I do recognize, listen, I've had many clients who didn't book in their first year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're on fire. So, you know, it's competitive. I used to say it's 100 auditions to booking, but I think that's doubled maybe at this point, because we have more auditions. So, yeah. You know, so, you know, as much as possible, you know, it's once again, we, you know, we generate income when you book, and you know, that's, you know, we all need new shoes. So
yeah, there's a number that keeps the business running, but that does not ever come into play for me with someone who's new, because you never know with someone new how they're going to land. And a year and a half, whoever, you know, however long you sign for, that's not enough time. That's not enough time with someone new, with someone who's building that voiceover career, not someone who comes from another agency who had a whole career. No, someone new, that takes a long time. So that number doesn't exist for me. What exists for me is, how have you been doing? What have you been up to? Have you been putting in that hard work? Have you been focusing on voiceover? Maybe you also have theatrical. Maybe you also have other parts of your career. That is okay. But are you still focusing on voiceover? Is it still right for you? That's what we're going to look at. I don't care if you're booking or not. I mean, I'd like it, but I don't care. I want to know who you are and if you're doing what I think we talked about when we first met with you.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, you know what I mean? So as much as it would be easy to sort of just look at numbers and make decisions that way, I think we're more complicated than that. And, you know, if you're really easy to get along with, if we really believe in you, you know, and you haven't booked yet, or maybe you've been on a bail or something, or, you know, you're really taking classes and doing the work. You know, we had a client years ago who wasn't booking that much and frankly was on our drop list. And then they added, you know, one of the agents as a friend on Facebook, and we all just felt guilty. And then they started booking. So you never know. I mean, it's just, you know, it's like, you know, it could be anything, but, and thank God we didn't cut them, you know? So, you know, we're all human at the end of the day, and we, you know, we like our talent, we love our talent. And, you know, if you're pleasant to work with and all of those things, I think that carries a lot of weight, you know, sometimes even more than, you know, not booking in the first year.
yeah.
It's kind of like an actor's curse. Book a vacation, you're going to get all the work. For an agent's curse, decide that somebody might not be worth it on your roster, be prepared to make that phone call, and then all of a sudden they book. And then you get very confused and you're like, wait, what did I do? What was my thought process on this? I mean, it's good, but you know.
So do you expect your client or your talent to submit for everything that you send them?
No, because there's some things people don't connect to. There's some things I'd rather someone say, you know what, Portia, we're going to pass on this. I'm okay with that, because that means that you recognize there's something in yourself that isn't going to be a fit, right? So I don't expect that, but I will say this just happened. I have a longstanding client, Booker, I sent them a voice match. And typically when I do a voice match is when I hear the clip of who we're matching, the actors I think of right off the top of my head are typically the ones, and then I'll go through my list to make sure, because I'm casting from what I hear, not what I'm looking at. So those are typically the top choice. And so we had a thing, particular actor was a voice match, and I was like, oh my God, that's so-and-so. And so I sent the actor the clip and everything, and they emailed me back, you know, I don't really sound like them, Portia. I don't know about it. And I said, no, you're going to do it, and you're going to book it. You're going to do it. And he did. I knew he was going to book it. I was just like, oh my, and so what he didn't hear, a voice match is not exact sound alike typically, really. It's a cadence. It's a rhythm. It's a rhythm that you're trying to match. Tone has to be in the same realm, but you have to sort of match that cadence. And he couldn't hear that. He just heard, it was a big celebrity. So they just looked at the celebrity, I think, and didn't connect. So that's when the agent's ear comes in and goes, no. I think this is right for you and you should do it. I think you might book it. And he booked it. So, it just depends on what it is. I don't mind if they pass. If it happens all the time, then there's something else is at play. But I trust my clients to be able to know really ultimately what's right for them.
I agree. I never have an issue when a talent passes on something, especially if they just don't connect to the project, or they are offended by it, or
right,
whatever the case may be. And I think, again, part of having a good agent talent relationship is there are those times, like Portia said, where I can say to a talent, I really think you should do this. I think you can do this, and I think you should. And so they'll grudgingly do it, and a lot of times end up booking it. So I think, you need to have that sort of freedom to have that conversation with your talent.
I think one of the worst things you can do for yourself as a talent who has a new agent is be too scared to tell them you're passing, but then miss auditions. Every single day, I get my list at the end of the day of all of my auditions for the day from all of my front desk, and they say, here's all the people you cast, and here's the people who submitted. And then next to their names, there will be notes for the people who didn't submit that say, hey, they passed for whatever reason. Hey, they're booked out, they're on vacation, that's why they didn't audition. And then there's those few names that have nothing next to it. And sometimes I put people on it because I really think they can book it. So sometimes I'm going to call and say, excuse me, what happened here? And, the thing is, though, when you have someone new, someone that I don't have a connection with, I don't have a relationship with, I may not call you immediately because I don't want to call you out. I don't want to, upset you. I want the relationship to blossom. But if I start to see that your name doesn't have check marks next to it, or at least a pass and a reason why, then I'm going to wonder, are they really into this? And so, yes, if you're busy, if you're crazy busy, you booked a ton of gigs during the day, that is great. Pass on the project. Or ask if you can have an extension. Ask if there is any way for an extension. Sometimes there is. Depends on the agency. We all have our own rules. But if you can ask for an extension, do it. But if you're going to ask for that extension, you better audition. So, don't get too scared and too wrapped up in the fear that you're going to screw up, that you actually do screw up.
I'm going to read this one just exactly. It's a bit long. As a trans actor in process of transitioning, I never feel like my voice is ready because it's constantly changing. It feels like it's never right. It's never the right time to make the leap into voiceover. Do you have any insight on how you would approach taking on trans client?
We'll have several.
Yeah, we actually had a trans client transition during representation of them. They were with us for 20 years before deciding to transition. It was a very honest conversation that we had to have about how they wanted to be represented vocally and personally. And yes, their voice changed over a significant period of time. It was something where we sent the auditions that we could, that we felt comfortable with, that they felt comfortable with, and that they then decided, I don't have the range for this yet. I don't have the range for this one yet. However, yes, if you're considering a series lead and your voice is going to continue to change, I would be careful. It's a very, very, very unique thing. And I think the best thing you can do is have an honest conversation with your agent about how they feel comfortable representing you. There are tons of amazing guest roles and game roles for so many different gender bending identities that you can book that are one-offs. There's a lot of that. And maybe then you are careful not to take on those series leads until you get to know the sense of your voice.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I have a couple of trans clients, trans female to male, male to female, both. And, you know, I guess I'm probably not answering a question, but I think this will be helpful. That what's really fascinating on my male to female client is amazing, because I get to submit them for both male content and female content, and this particular client, non-binary content. So it is, you know, it's a real win for us as agents that that talent can be so malleable, and we can have them in different areas. In terms of the actual question and transitioning, I think you just have to get to a place where you're comfortable and you're ready to present yourself out for representation. I think that maybe you want to see where you are vocally and maybe wait a bit till you get to a place where you have a little more control on those vocals, and then present yourself out for potential representation. You know, but
Yeah,
once you get it, it's a win for your agent. Trust me.
Yeah, and again, I think it just goes to the agent-talent relationship and how comfortable you are talking to your agent. Hopefully you are, and just being honest about it. You know, I had a trans talent recently, a trans female, male to female, who just said, you know, I'd like to still read on male roles. I feel like my voice is still there. You know, now if we didn't have that kind of relationship, I might be worried I would offend her, you know, by sending her male copy. And thankfully she was able to have an honest conversation with me, and we were able to talk about it. And, you know, because at the end of the day, we want to put you, again, you know, in the best case scenario where you're getting things that you feel comfortable with and can book.
Is a referral to an agent from another actor okay, or who should that be from?
Well,
If it's an actor within the agency.
Yes, I think that's what the question is.
I mean, yeah, if it's a referral from a client, sure, that's okay. But I do get those sometimes, you know, someone, oh, so-and-so referred me to you, and I have no idea who so-and-so is. I'm like, oh, that's so nice. I'm happy to be out in the world, in the sphere, talked about. I'm good with that, but I don't know who that is. So for me, you would have done better just to be a cold submission than, you know, make sure if so-and-so is referring, make sure I know them. You know what I mean? There's a real relationship.
If it's a talent at another agency that we may know of, my first thought always goes to, well, why didn't they walk it into their own agency, you know, or did their agent pass on it, you know? So just be careful of that. Again, you know, be aware of who you're submitting to.
Yeah, that comes up. Oh, I'm represented with CESD, and they're submitting to me, and I'm like, well, they have a fabulous voiceover department. Why? So apparently they didn't want to sign you. So you probably shouldn't tell me that part, because then I'm like, well, they don't want to sign them. I don't want to sign them. Do you know what I mean? So just make sure you're smart about that.
Yeah, and I think be respectful of knowing that, again, you're asking someone who has a very busy day to give you some of their time. And if you have an actor friend of yours who is represented at that agency and feels comfortable connecting you with their agent. The best way you can do it is have that actor reach out to their agent, tell them, here are the materials. Here's why I vouch for them. Here's their contact info if you are interested. It's pain-free. I know that I can choose. I can choose to get back to that person, or I can get back to my actor and say, you know what, we listened and I'm sorry, but it's just not the right thing for us at the time. But I think that that's the most pain-free way of giving an agent that ability to make a smart decision rather than feel forced. If you force yourself onto somebody and say, oh, you know, I walked into the agency with this actor, or with this other actor friend of mine, and I got to walk behind the scenes, they might feel really uncomfortable about that because, you know, they're in the middle of their day. They've got phone calls to make. And if you just walked in with them, they're going to feel like, excuse me, this is my business. I don't know you. So, you know, be smart about it.
Okay, a few more questions. We'll try to get this through quickly. So how frequently from the original email in a cold email would you feel is appropriate to follow up? And how many times?
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
How often should someone follow up, and how long in between should they follow up with an email?
You know, I think if you send an email on a Monday and you haven't heard anything, maybe in a month, maybe you could follow up. I feel could be a reasonable amount of time. As everyone said on the panel, you know, our emails are full of submissions, and depending on how busy, you know, I have specific times where I look at submissions and then I don't, unless something just happens to catch me in a moment. But really, I have a dedicated time. I'm like, okay, great. Let me go through everything I've starred and I've dropped into, you know, my submission folder. Let me just go through, or if I'm looking for something in particular. That's why it's really important to sort of define who you are, because I might be like missing something and I'm like, oh, let me check the submissions real quick to see what I can pull from. So I think a month feels reasonable to me, you know, as a follow-up. And if you follow up in a month and then again you don't hear anything, I think you let it go. You move on. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my answer as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel about social media? Do you feel like they should be very visible or popular within their market?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes and yes.
If you can be. Some people aren't really great at social media. That is okay. It doesn't mean that you're incapable. If you have a lot of talent, you can still do it. But social media is here to stay.
And, you know, bookings come from social media. You know, we post stuff or interest. You know, our social media department will post, oh, so-and-so's new this is coming out. Or, you know, someone just book this, book that. I get casting people who will inbox me and say, oh, ask me questions about that talent. I've had many direct bookings happen from social media. Yeah. So, because I follow, you know, we follow the ad agencies, we tag them when we book their product if we don't sign an NDA, you know what I mean? So there is definitely synergy in social media. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, but social media is a double-edged sword.
Mhm.
Like Portia was just saying with an NDA.
Right.
Be 100% prepared to know when you can post and when you can't post. Do not be stupid. Think so hard about the choices you make. If you are in a studio and you're taking a picture, you better hope that you don't have a script in the background. Let me tell you how many times I've had to call an actor and tell them they need to immediately remove a post because they have a script for an unannounced series in the background of their picture, whether they intended that or not, you know, or hinted at something because they thought they were being cutesy and hinting at it. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap. Be prepared. Know your release dates. Know when you're allowed to post about something. Ask when you're allowed to post about something. Get permission before you can post about it. Once you have that permission, then post about it. Be smart. If you're getting asked to do interviews, be very smart. Get permission. Make sure you know what are your talking points. What can you talk about? What can you not talk about? It's a hard thing. So be careful.
Because it's not fun when the studio reaches out to the agent and says, what's going on? Why is that up there? Or you get the email from the studio where it's to the conglomerate of agents who have talent on said show and says someone has violated, and then you're panicking like, oh, please don't let it be my client. Yeah. So yeah, the NDA is what it is. Jeez.
And even beyond social media, I mean, I wish actors would just stop talking about auditions among each other. You know what I mean? Because that's under an NDA most of the time too.
Yeah.
So it's just, why do it? You know, I mean, again, you know, as I was saying before, it's gotten so competitive. Like, keep it to yourself. Why do you want somebody else to even have that opportunity? You know, if they don't need to. So just keep that stuff quiet.
Brag about your tomato garden.
Exactly.
There are two questions regarding classes that I'm going to answer. If you're interested in taking any classes for voiceover, go to helpnet.com. There we go. So let's end it on this question for those who are watching you and are interested in your agencies, what makes your agency unique? Or maybe what makes you as an agent unique?
Well, I think for me, like I said, really at the top of the hour is, you know, I really agent from an actor's perspective. So I'm listening, my listening is in that realm. I'm listening for acting. I'm listening for, do you have a technique in the way that you're presenting your content? You know, how are you arriving at that? Are you going to be able to duplicate that performance? Should you get on a series? You know, my goal, we handle animation, commercial, video game, and ADR. That's pretty much it. So if you want promo, trailer, narration, you know, I'm going to send you over to these lovely two agencies because they have amazing departments in that area. So that's what we handle. So I'm going to be listening for performance. And are you, you know, because I can hear, because I've trained so long as an actor through my life, that I can hear when it's, you know, I can hear when you're doing something and when you're not. So I think I sort of lead a lot with that in securing talent in various, you know, panels I'm on and what have you. So I think there's that, and we're really known, you know, we're known for animation. That is their strong suit, and that they're us, me, hello, they, what? So, you know, I would say that's I think what we're mostly known for, and that's our strength.
I think that we have 5 agents in all different departments. There's been very little turnover at our agency. We all get along, and I think that's important because we all view it as a team. So I think some agencies tend to, you know, you're an animation person or a commercial person or a promo person. We want you to work for all of us, and we talk regularly amongst ourselves. So, you know, if we take you on as a client, we're all working for you. I think that's one thing that I'm really proud of at Cunningham.
Yeah, SBV is a lot the same. I know Rita, our founder, came from CESD back when it was Cunningham. So we base it the same way. But, you know, we've been around for 40 years. And again, most of our agents have been there for 30, 20, 25 years. And so I happened upon voiceover, and I happened into SBV. I loved the community, and I loved the way, coming from acting and coming from directing, that SBV worked with both the actors and the buyers to understand what they needed and to make sure that we weren't wasting anyone's time, that we worked really hard not to do that. And I think one of the things we say in a lot of our meetings with new clients is to say that we see things from a managerial standpoint. You know, we try really hard to be a really important part of that person's growth. yes, we have talent that have been there for years and have built an amazing career. And yes, of course, we work hard for them, but we are just as committed to finding and growing new talent and really building that career. And I think that's something that I think that's really a true reason why I ended up staying at SBV as long as I did.
You know, one teeny other note, you know, I have to say, you know, I started my career once again at CESD, and you know, it's a great company because the skill set, the things that I learned there have sustained me, you know, through my career. You know, still in my head, I hear TJ Escott saying, you know, it's the radio is per spot, per cycle, you know, I mean, so I learned some, you know, great tools there. And I think that, you know, our Coast to Coast has been around for, I don't know, 30 something years as well. And these are all three very solid and strong companies with, I think, really good values and good knowledge, smart knowledge. And so I'm, you know, I just wanted to sort of give that little shout out. I'm grateful for that, you know.
It's so nice that you have each other's backs. Any final words that you'd like to offer people?
Work hard. Work hard.
Good job being here today. That's like, it's like therapy. It's like the first step, you know, get to learn, get to know. Good job for listening today and trying to take as much of this as you can. Go watch, go learn, go find more of this and just keep growing.
I always love that quote from Steve Martin, I think, be so good they can't ignore you. I think, you know, at this point where you're like so focused on getting an agent, just do the work, you know, be good at what you do and the rest will follow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, for allowing us to go well over the time. Thanks everyone for being here. If there's any information that you did miss, it'll be on our Facebook, the Help Network. And yeah, thanks so much for your time. This was really, really insightful.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll do more in the future. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.